Hello, everyone, and welcome to Increasing Internationalization in the Philippines through Digital Education. This is a Time to Higher Education roundtable in partnership with Coursera. My name is Alistair Lawrence. I'm a Special Projects Editor at THE, and I'd like to thank you all today for joining today's discussion. An online version of this roundtable and a summary of its key findings will be published on the Time to Higher website post-event, should you wish to revisit this content or share it with colleagues. You're also welcome to turn on your cameras and your microphones because we try and make these discussions as interactive as possible so that we can discuss the points amongst ourselves and also ask each other questions if you would like to do that. So before we begin the overview and the main discussion, I'd like to briefly hand over to Eclavia Barbe, who is Senior Regional Director for Asia, Pacific and Japan at Coursera, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how Coursera are working with universities in the Philippines. Eclavia?
Yeah, hi, Alistair. Thank you so much. And good afternoon to everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I heard there's likelihood of typhoon in Cebu, so please take care. And the other regions, I hope you're doing well as well. So great topic, Alistair, internationalization. And before I talk about internationalization, I thought it's very, very important to set in the context of Philippines as well. So what we are seeing in Philippines as a learning platform, as well as what's happening as the macro view in Philippines is important. And then we'll talk about internationalization and then specifically how we can help the students through digital education. So what you've seen in the last 2 years or so, right? The haves and have-nots, the difference has been increasing. And this is not purely in terms of monetary value, but also in terms of the opportunity that the learners, students, and citizens have. We've seen that, and there are many, many news articles around the job losses in Philippines. And this is true for almost every country in the world, but also in Philippines, we've seen in the last 1.5 decades, the worst unemployability rates in the region, which is very, very alarming. But even without COVID, this was happening in the background because of the automation. So if you see this chart, what you see on the bottom right is the number of jobs and the jobs that might get impacted because of automation. And that is going to happen even without COVID. All the jobs which are low skill jobs will get impacted due to COVID. Any repetitive task that can be automated will eventually get automated. And that was happening in the background even before COVID. And that's why it's important that we help students to move there, because with COVID and automation, there's a double impact that Philippines has been going through like any other country in the world. And there are reports that almost 7 million plus jobs will get impacted because of COVID as well as automation. And this is really, really alarming because these are big numbers in the context of a country like Philippines. And also very, very important for us in this field of education to make sure that the students are ready for these kind of changes, because jobs are not easy to come by. And what we've been seeing is that not everything is that grim. And there are some very, very positive sides to it, especially in the context of Philippines and the learners and the students that we have on our platform. And what we have seen in the last 1 year is the number of new enrollments from Philippines and the acceleration in the online learning from Philippines has gone up really. If you look at the last 4 years or so, the number of course enrollments from Philippines were around 100,000 and suddenly accelerated in last 1 year. And I mean, this group should be happy about it, that across all the countries in Southeast Asia, the number of new learners from Philippines have been the highest. And it is not just the new learners, but also the number of courses that these new learners are taking is by far the highest in the South Asia region across all the countries. The other factor is the number of new women learners. And this is also very, very good number to look at, is the number of new enrollments coming from women learners in Philippines is the highest in the world. The number of new learners that we have seen across the world, and the highest number came from Philippines, which is very, very positive signal. But it's important to know what these learners are learning, because just learning, just coming to online platform is the first step, but it's important that we handhold the students to the next few steps Because if we look at the new jobs that are going to get created in the next few years, if you see the World Economic Forum data, which is on your left, it says the top 5 jobs with increasing demands are all related to digital skills. These skills, these jobs were not there a few years ago. So obviously there is no curriculum, obviously there are no books around that. And how do we help the students to acquire these skills so that they are easy to adapt to the changing world outside the campus? And what we have seen is that the learners are embracing this. And it's important that we help the students and make them aware that the entry level digital jobs are easy to acquire if they build the skills which are needed. One of the other things that I was reading is that out of all the unemployed people in Philippines, almost 1/4 of them are graduates. So just having a degree, just having just being bachelor's or having a college degree is not enough. It is important that the students have the right skills which are needed for the industry. And if you look at these entry-level jobs, the data analyst or marketing specialist, just doing a course is not enough, but doing the right course that helps you acquire those skills is very, very important. So somebody who wants to become a marketing specialist can take a social media marketing professional certificate from Facebook. Somebody is looking at an entry-level job can take a sales development representative course from Salesforce. These are the leading companies in their domain. And similarly, in data science or IT, there are professional certificates available from IBM, Google, and some of the other leading companies, AWS, which help the students to acquire the skills needed for entry-level jobs. And we have seen this impact happening across the world in other regions. So these are the opportunities for the students to build those skills. Also, we have been hearing a lot from the industry on the importance of having more career skills. A student may be great at programming, for example, but unless that student also has the requisite professional skills, personal skills, it is very, very difficult for those students to easily adapt to the working environment in an industry. And unfortunately, in many, many universities, these kind of learning opportunities are not there for students. So working with the students to acquire the digital skills, but also helping them to acquire these human skills, leadership skills, and career skills are important. And this also has an internationalization aspect because students can learn, acquire the skills, and get the credentials from top universities of the world, such as Yale, Michigan, Illinois, etc. And that's what we've been working with universities to do, is that provide a platform, a learning opportunity for the students, the faculty members, and then the university as a whole. So first, through the Coursera for Campus platform, the students and the faculty members are able to access the learning content, which is top class, as well as the international content, which we have seen in the few slides before this. The other part is private authoring. And this is very, very important for us to help the faculty members to be able to create digital content. Because as universities are looking to embrace digital technology, how do we help the faculty members to create content, author assessment, and also help the students to get best from the both worlds. So they can take content from Yale, Michigan, Google, but they can also learn from the faculty members in the campus. And that gives a great opportunity for both students and faculty members. And the third and fourth part is around helping them to have job-ready skills. So it's important that the students build those skills which are necessary for the industry, and we provide simulation, we provide hands-on projects to the students so that they are able to acquire those skills, work on real softwares and tools, which otherwise they may not have the opportunity to do that. And this all comes at a scalable platform, and how universities are looking at it is bringing both these together. So for example, in this example that you see on the slide, on the left side, the core subjects are being taught by the faculty members of the university, but some of the courses can also come from Coursera. So for example, data structures and algorithm comes from University of San Diego. Similarly, electronic system design comes from Georgia Tech. And what you see on the right is electives. All the electives, the universities decided to go through the Coursera platform, because then you can have IBM, Google, etc. courses coming from the Coursera platform. So bringing everything together, it's a great learning opportunity for students to build the skills which are important in the job world, but also for the university to quickly augment what they've been teaching in the campus without making a lot of changes in the infrastructure. So with the same infrastructure, give an opportunity for the faculty members to create content and a great learning experience to the student that will help them acquire international exposure and also the skills which are needed for the job world. I know I've taken a lot of time, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of views. So I'll pause here instead of going further, and would love to get views from the panelists as well.
Great, thank you very much, Eklavya. So, as I said, we've got about another 50 minutes left. If people would like to turn their cameras on, this is just an opportunity for us to discuss the points of discussion that we had earlier. Oh, hello, Jocelyn. Hi, Amy. And we can move through after a brief overview that I would like to give, which is, I was just say that higher education institutions in the Philippines have withstood a lot of dramatic changes that have been wrought by the pandemic, with the adoption of online education has been implemented across the country during what was a 20-month lockdown, I believe, for schools and colleges. Universities need to maintain that forward-thinking momentum now, and a lot of it comes in the form of delivery that Eklavya mentioned. And digital education is playing an increased role, not just domestically, but also on the international stage. However, this does present a new range of strategic challenges for higher education leaders when we look at what students want and what staff want, and how we can help both of them. So I'd like to ask the panel to begin with, what are the main barriers that persist when they are trying to provide hybrid and online only education to students? Imi, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amy from the University of the Philippines. There is an apparent, obvious digital divide in the country. So basically, the students are scattered all over the archipelago. So some have good internet connections, others don't. So that's one real problem that we're facing when it comes to blended or virtual learning. And then I actually have another question for Mr. Bave, if that's okay. So we've been trying to reach him. So we wanted to actually meet with someone from Coursera to talk about possible virtual courses for our students. So how are we supposed to go about that if we would like to have this? We would like to have Coursera courses available for our students.
Absolutely.
Is there a code or how do we go about that? So we've been trying to reach you actually, because UP actually provides our students support for virtual learning. And so it's part of our internationalization endeavors to provide funding support so they can actually pay, for example, for their courses that they would like to take online. So you have to wear a mask someone's in the room. So
no problem. Yeah. No, I think that's great to hear, Professor Martinez, and thanks for your interest. We're already working with few universities in the Philippines, and similarly, we can schedule a meeting with your team. And there are ways that we can work with you as part of the curriculum, or help students to acquire the skills which are necessary for international exposure as well as employability. And there are teams on our side which can align with you. And right now, we're also seeing the importance of higher digital education in Philippines. We are investing very heavily in the region, both as Asia as well. And there's my colleague Pio on the call. He's based in the Philippines. So Pio and I can help schedule the meetings with your team.
Right. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Conrado, would you like to go next, please?
Yeah, I'd just like to affirm what Amy said. I'm Conrado from the Technological Institute of the Philippines. In fact, in the July 2021 assessment of UCLA, which is an internet access performance firm, the Philippines actually ranked 72 in terms of mobile speed, internet speed, and ranked 63 in terms of fixed broadband. So I guess aside from the geographic locations, where some of the areas in the Philippines don't really have that stable connection, internet speed is really a barrier towards deploying digital education.
And Narciso, have you, what's the barriers that are facing you that you've observed for your students? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
I would like to affirm and reiterate what they said. Really overcoming the challenges of internet connectivity as well as speed is a very big issue for us. I'm located here, our university is located here in Cebu. A good number of students are coming from within the island, but we also have many students coming from the other islands. And again, as an archipelago, Philippines is really doubly challenged how to overcome this isolated locations of our students. And it is something that education institutions cannot address all by themselves. We need the support of the government as well as other agencies. We're trying to do our level best. We are providing internet subsidy to our faculty in the university on a monthly basis. We are granting computer loans to them as well, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. For the students, we are trying to encourage them to kind of form a cluster, for example, neighborhood system, whereby they could get a internet account from one of our internet providers. But again, these are kind of small solutions to the bigger problem. And I think unless we have a nationwide approach to solving this problem and addressing the educational crisis of the country, not only during the pandemic, but even before and after the pandemic, is something that we cannot solve by ourselves as education institutions.
Clara, can I ask you about this? Because this is not just a problem for the Philippines, it's something that has impacted people all over the world, really. Are there common solutions that you're seeing that are emerging in addition to the ones the panelists have mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a real problem. So I completely agree and concur with what the panelists have been saying. And this is true for Philippines as well as the other South Asian countries as well. I was reading some data points that of all the households in Philippines, only 40% of them have the access to internet. But almost 97% of the residents have mobile connections, and speed can vary from region to region. What we also saw last year, because as the pandemic broke out, we made our Coursera platform for free for 6 months for all the education institutes around the world. And they were almost 70% of the learners who came to our platform use their mobile phones. What the learners would do would use a mobile phone and learn whenever the connection was good, but also they had the opportunity of downloading the content so that even when the speed and connection was not that good, they could learn offline in a way. So mobile can be a real big enabler here. And the positive part is there's mobile penetration is very high in Philippines. And one of the universities that we were working with, they said that initially they were also skeptical, but when they looked at the data points and connected with the students for 6 months, the results were very encouraging because the students use the mobile phones. And as we come back to the physical world, hopefully soon, it'll be a great opportunity for students to learn on campus, as well as when they go out back to their hometowns, they can use the mobile network to continue learning.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel also what they think the biggest benefits have been to being able to, in addition to the increasing access, what the biggest benefits have been to being able to go back on campus and teach in person. Conrado, please.
Oh, okay. Well, the students are actually looking for an effective in-person instruction coming from their professors. Well, a lot of our students are actually complaining about how lonely it was, to attend synchronous classes online. So they miss their peers, their classmates, they miss the interaction. And I think that is what's taken away when we go into a digital education setup here in the country because of the lockdown. So the effective learning actually doesn't happen anymore because of the impersonal delivery of education. I think that's one of the things that is actually the students are looking for now. Even the faculty members are actually looking for some sort of an interaction. More than the virtual interaction that they're having with their students, they're looking for a more personal interaction so they can guide the students better with their lessons, give them more advice, give them more guidance, and that is what was lacking.
It's interesting because a lot of what's been praised about online education is the idea that you can let students learn at their own pace. So people can go back and they can rewatch materials multiple times and until something makes sense to them, whereas perhaps there was a danger if they just had one in-person lecture and then nothing else, or rather that was the only time they had the information told to them. They might miss something, they might struggle to keep up. But you're saying that there's also that kind of interaction that is taking place in person still. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Alistair, may I say something?
Sure, please.
I think the pandemic has really opened our eyes in many ways regarding the issue of learning. Our young people, I think, are realizing that there's more to learning than just classroom or lectures. And I think we need to create a proper environment and context of learning. It's not simply a conveying of information from teachers to students, but really the whole ecosystem of learning, and something which the digital learning or online learning can be problematic because, again, of the lack of other inputs that would come with a more holistic learning.
All right, thank you very much. Cheryl, thank you very much for joining us today. I understand that there is a typhoon, which is not something we're used to dealing with in London. So I'm very impressed that everyone has joined us regardless. If you could perhaps tell us a little bit about the process at University of Santo Tomas, please. What are the barriers that you are facing as we continue to look at how to deliver teaching and learning online and in person, and also what you think the benefits have been since students and staff have been able to come back on campus?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm sorry I'm late. I just came from another meeting. Thank you very much for this invitation to be part of this roundtable discussions. I'm Cheryl Peralta. I'm the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs of the University of Santo Tomas. We are a comprehensive university. We offer more than 100 program specializations in campus. And we cater to more than 40,000 students and more than 2,300 academic staff in one single campus. So, well, during the pandemic, I think we were blessed that we have been using a learning management system for 18 years prior to the pandemic. So the shift, while we also had to deal with the emergency shift to remote instruction, because previously we were just using the learning management system for blended learning approaches, we had to shift them to totally online learning. And of course, there has been the difficulties of students and faculty in terms of internet connectivity and the appropriate technological devices. But I think our prior experience in the use of a learning management system helped us go quicker, I think. Though, of course, there will always remain to be challenges, considering that, as mentioned a while ago, the experience is different. So we admit that students also claim that they have not truly appreciate everything. I mean, they don't appreciate learning as much as when they are face to face with classmates and are able to socialize with friends and see their teachers face to face. So, but there are advantages, as has been mentioned. Materials are made available to them so that they can access them anytime. It's just that maybe because the curriculum, we realized that maybe because the curriculum in the Philippines, given the number of courses expected for a student to finish in a term, as has been based on policies set by the Commission on Higher Education, the number of courses actually is not consistent with what is the usual format for online learning, wherein students usually take it modular and they take it in phases, and they don't really take the courses all at the same time. But inevitably, in the current setup, while we try to navigate it by dividing the term so that they're taking less courses at a certain period of time, it's really requiring a lot of work on the part of the academic staff as well as the students. Now that we're returning to campus, we're reopening to limited face-to-face classes for prioritized courses, particularly skills-based courses and laboratories. I think the students, while the students and their parents have some hesitations in line with the COVID-19 pandemic, the chances of infection. I think the students are very much willing to learn how to navigate the health protocols just so they can return to campus, because they do realize, together with our academic staff, that while there are innovative means to teach all these skills online, face-to-face instruction cannot truly be replaced by virtual instruction, particularly in the practice of skills. So right now we're moving to hybrid learning. So we have sessions wherein we design instruction for face-to-face classes, and then they will still have to conduct most of their classes online. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the overview. Eleanor, I was wondering if you could tell us about your institution, please, and whether you've had similar challenges or whether there are new challenges emerging now in the face of all the external pressures that exist on staff and students. Eleanor, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me okay. No. Okay. Trixie, can we perhaps come to you if you could tell us a little bit about how student expectations are changing and also staff expectations are changing when we talk about digital delivery and online and in person.
All right. So hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Trixie from Miriam College, the Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences and Education. So basically, well, just like the others, when we shifted to remote learning, our students had to adjust. Our faculty had to make a lot of adjustments as well. It wasn't easy because basically, again, there were several challenges like connectivity issues. Our students, well, basically Filipino learners still need to acquire that sort of, what you call student agency, being able to really learn at their own pace. So basically, maybe because it can be attributed to the fact that our educational system has not trained them in such a way that they become more independent learners. So that's a challenge. But our students are resilient. So as our faculty, after a year or so of doing remote learning, I think they have transitioned to adapting to the new setup, to the new system. And they realized as well that, with online learning, they're able to do more. We've conducted a recent study and we saw that our students are basically wanting to immerse themselves in more learning opportunities. As such, what's good to note is that they're willing to, to take courses aside from mandated courses that that are required from, or that they're supposed to be taking. So that's the reason why I'm also wondering about Coursera, because we had an initial talk to them, but we've lost touch. I hope that we can talk to them soon again, because we were really interested, but I just don't know what happened to the discussion that we had with Coursera. So basically, it's our students now are able to adjust in the new platform, and then the challenge now is, because we're gradually going back to limited face-to-face. We conducted a study within our institution, and 50% actually would want to stay online, and another 50% would want to we want to go to school, or would want to engage in face-to-face modality. So again, you're seeing here that half of the population have seen the benefits of doing remote learning, while the other half, of course, still miss the interaction that they have with their classmates. So basically, that's
okay. Thank you, Tricia. I was wondering, it does create a balancing act, doesn't it, in terms of what you need to provide to different types of learners. Do you also have to monitor attainment to make sure that, you know, just because a student tells you that they prefer to work purely online, it is not impacting the attainment they might achieve more if they do have a blended model?
So basically, we usually conduct assessment activities to be able to see whether they're actually. We had a study conducted wherein we tried to see their engagement and their what do you call this, their being able to acquire certain competencies, and try to compare that with how they were performing in the past. And we've seen that more or less, and basically more or less interesting. Most of our students really perform better in an online learning environment. We also try to study whether the teachers have been more lenient, but basically it's the same. It's just that they came up with better, I guess, assessment tools to be able to gauge the performance of the students.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Ellen, I see you have your hand raised. Would you like to come in?
Yes, my apologies. I wasn't able to hear earlier.
That's okay.
Yes. So I also wanted to share here our experience of the online learning. So for us, there were disadvantages and advantages, and the advantage mainly is for our students who come from the far-flung areas. We have actually 7 campuses across the northern Mindanao. And the good thing here is that we did not just do online learning, we also produced printed modules for them. Because even if we gave them tablets and data load for online learning, some of them are in areas where there is no signal at all. So there's no use for the tablets and data load. And so we also produce printed modules. The positive thing about this is that we were able to reach out to other universities, not just here in the Philippines, but abroad. So we were able to strengthen our linkages with them. And to your question about the benefits of coming back to limited face-to-face learning, the main benefit is really for our laboratory classes. We're already starting, actually. We're not holding classes. We're just allowing the students to come to the campus and use the facilities. And that's for the students who are allowed according to our government regulations. So we are currently preparing, because we had actually our enrollment bloated a bit because of the situation, and many other students from many areas were able to enroll. But at the same time, as we go back in preparation for face-to-face, we have to look again at our facilities, at our capability in terms of our classrooms, because we have more students now, surprisingly. So that's our experience here in Cagayan de Oro. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad it hasn't had a negative impact on your registration numbers. One question I had to follow up was to ask about how access is changing, and this speaks to Eclavia's point a little bit at the beginning of the hour, which is, to what extent do you think that digital education encourages students to remain in the Philippines rather than studying abroad now? I mean, obviously in the short term, they haven't been able to go to some countries, but over the long term, it may be that they do have the opportunity for international study that represents itself. Is there now an opportunity for universities such as yours to make a stronger case for staying local and studying locally? Eleanor, did you have any thoughts on that?
In our case, as I said earlier, we were able to establish additional linkages with additional universities, and it's unclear right now whether we will be sending our students physically, but it is also clear that they will be able to conduct or to handle or to attend classes online. So that's the benefit, in a sense, the current situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if any of the other panelists had seen any shifts in terms of their students' desire to study abroad because of the flexibility that digital education gives them. I mean, again, granted, they haven't been able to in the short term for obvious reasons, but do they think that this will actually strengthen the offering they were able to make, not just to university students who are already in the Philippines, but also the broader region and international students who may now consider international study because some of the barriers have been removed? Cheryl, I can see you have your hand raised. Would you like to give us your thoughts?
Yes, for local students, in fact, for our students in the university, as part of our implementation of enriched virtual mode of instruction, we one of the enrichment strategies that we intended to maximize is the fact that we can actually explore more collaborations with foreign institution partners in terms of conducting classes together online. So in this case, we were able to invite foreign academic staff to conduct lectures for local classes, and at the same time for our local students to work with foreign counterparts, foreign students, on coming up with common projects. So we did see that our research presentations, for example, our academic units were able to maximize partnerships with foreign institutions by inviting their students and their academic staff to watch their research presentations, give feedback, and for some of the foreign academic staff to even sit as panelists in their research defense. For practicum, some of our academic units were able to collaborate with foreign companies and foreign universities for virtual internships, virtual practicums, and I think that also pushed our units to be more innovative, think of other ways by which these students' experience can be elevated a notch higher despite the challenges of the pandemic. And this made us realize that these opportunities might have been present even before the pandemic, but the pandemic has forced us to speed up plans to deploy these kinds of virtual engagements so that we can continue to have active partnerships with our foreign institutions with which we have MOAs, so that our instruction or the instruction received by the students is really enhanced further despite the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amy, would you like to add to that? How has your offering been enhanced or hindered by internationalism now?
So I'd agree. Virtual engagements like courses or whatever would definitely enhance internationalization, that's for sure. So UP in a way is quite unique because we're a national university, so tuition is free. So we're really not worried about our students leaving us for a different opportunity because of that. But then also because we actually provide for this virtual engagements that they can participate in. So in a way, it will enhance their education, but then worrying about whether they'll be done or not. That's a different matter. But then it's not applicable to other universities, of course, in the Philippines. I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay, great. No, thank you very much. Narciso, could you perhaps tell us what the situation is at your institution, please?
Yeah, we are still in the pandemic period, and I think the mobility, student mobility in terms of outbound students has been greatly limited or restricted because of travel problems and restrictions. So naturally, students who would have preferred to study abroad, they could not do so. So they are stuck here in the country. But I mean, I think it's still too early to tell whether this will be a permanent situation wherein the digital education will discourage students from going abroad and pursuing their educational aspirations outside the country. But I share the insights of Dr. Cheryl that I think this digital education provides an opportunity for us to re-examine our curriculum, make it more international, also even our faculty. So greater collaboration and partnerships in terms of developing and designing our curriculum, and also in terms of our researchers and faculty cross-teaching from here and other universities, something which we're already pursuing in the USC. In some ways, that is very advantageous for us because we can invite professors from abroad and come to teach our course without necessarily coming here. So it will save us a lot of money. And then I think that is a very promising prospect. But again, going back to my first point of student mobility, I think because of the pandemic, it's still too early for us to tell whether it's going to be a permanent situation.
Okay, thank you. And do you think that, have you started to anticipate any medium or long-term changes, or is there still too much uncertainty to be able to plan for the future in terms of what you may offer international students that will be different going forward?
Yeah, we are already kind of coming up with several models. Again, the blended learning is of course one that we can market abroad for students coming to us. In fact, we are getting a substantial number or an uptick of enrollment of students from abroad in our business related courses. And they are of course exploiting the blended model that they don't have to come to the Philippines anymore. And it's very, very convenient for them because of again, travel problems this time around, and of course the visa requirements and those things. And we hope that CHED, our Commission on Higher Education here, will eventually allow us to make something more permanent in this regard, no? of allowing international students to join us without necessarily requiring them to come to the country.
Okay, thank you very much. Amy, can we come to you next, please, and then Conrado after that.
Right. So that's what our Commission on Higher Education calls blended learning. I think Mr. Salan mentioned that already. I think that is something that will keep going even after the pandemic. I think it's counterproductive and counterintuitive to just forget about virtual learning and the ease of access that we have to it. I mean, there's a lot of resources that we can actually take advantage of with this virtual engagement. So I think moving forward, it's going to be a blend between physical and virtual, and taking advantage of the pros that comes with both types of modalities.
Thank you. And Conrado, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to also comment on how the whole situation actually opened up some opportunities for schools to do internationalization. For one, travel would not be allowed, but we can always capitalize on the virtual platform to get professors, to teach certain topics or to offer even our courses or programs to students abroad. And for one, also, I think the challenge would just be the time difference from where the professor is and what time would the classes be in the country. But somehow it opened up opportunities for internationalization for some schools. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty. Like in the Philippines, every 2 weeks, we get a different guideline on the quarantine protocols. So we are expected to open up schools sometime in January. But again, there's this threat of Omicron. So we don't know after opening for 1 week if the schools will again be closed. So again, with a virtual platform, internationalization would actually be moving forward, even with the constant changes in terms of these guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the changing guidelines, I can confirm, are a global issue as well as a local one. Trixie, please, would you like to add your thoughts?
Yes, actually, we are partners with several institutions abroad. And one good thing about what's happening now is that our students need not go to another institution because of remote learning. So in fact, like we have two cohorts of students who are supposed to go to UK, but because of the pandemic, they just had to stay here and finish their studies. But hopefully by June, they'll be able to go to UK to finish their degree. So that's one good thing about it. And I've also noticed that there are a lot of students, especially in the graduate program, who are now enrolled in our, the courses, the programs that we're offering locally. So that also opened a lot of doors for us in terms of the number of students being interested in taking local programs here in the Philippines, because again, because of remote learning. Now that we're about to shift to limited face-to-face, the modality that we're thinking of is hybrid, in the sense that those who would want to stay in their respective countries can continue studying remotely, while the others can already be in go to Miriam College, to our institution, and engage in face-to-face classes.
Okay, thank you very much. Clive, I wanted to ask how much of this Coursera sees as being a global issue. I mean, for example, there was a Times Higher reported last week that now I think almost 1 in 5 English language degrees are taught outside of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US. So when we look at English language courses taught in the English language, there is clearly decentralization happening now, with more countries offering courses, and that will have its impact on student behaviors and student travel. The trends that the panelists have discussed so far about the flexibility, the greater flexibility to invite particular people to come and learn, the ability to take courses from other universities. I mean, is this something that you've seen change at all over the 18 months, or is it just continuing to grow and diversify as we go through this period?
Yeah, and I think when we discuss all of this, we have to keep in mind the learner or the student as the most important part of this entire ecosystem. And I would say that the students of today are much smarter than at least when I was a student. Today, the student wants to learn something because she wants to learn something, not because she is being told to take a course. So the students need to know what the learning outcomes are, not just that, hey, take these 4 courses because we are telling you to do so. Students engage with the platform, and what we're seeing on our platform is that students, when they know the learning outcome, and the learning outcome is you will acquire these 4 skills. So for example, on our platform, the students can take a full learning program just to become a digital marketer or AWS certified engineer, for example. So that's a clear learning outcome for students. Second is the quality. They don't want to take anything which is low quality, because they now are friends with students in UK, US, Australia, India, across the world. So every country, student knows what the students in the other regions are learning. So they want the best. Third is the immersive experience. A student who's taking a course in computer science wants to learn Python, wants to learn Tableau as a software. They just don't want to read books. They want to experience the real piece of software. And I think there was a point made around the labs. Students want to come to the campus for labs, but also they want to same experience in the online world. How do you do the actual programming and not just study books related to programming? So I think the student becomes the central piece of it. And as the outcome is skill, the outcome is more employability, outcome is more learning, but also they want real credentials. And that's where the internationalization aspect comes, because a student would definitely get the advantage of learning from their faculty of their own colleges, their own institutions, which already was there even 5 years ago. But now the online learning opens another opportunity for them to also learn from professors in Yale or Illinois or University of London, and also the industry aspect that was missing in a big way earlier. student didn't have the exposure to the leading companies such as Google, IBM, Salesforce, Facebook, etc. Now that has been democratized in a way because it takes away the barriers. There might be a student in Sri Lanka or Philippines or India or Mexico. All of them have the same opportunity. So I think that is coming very, very important change as we see the higher education landscape. And also few important points that were made by the panelists want to reemphasize, because we are seeing the same thing there. The number of enrollments going higher, because with the same infrastructure, now the universities can think about either augmenting what they've been teaching or also maybe augmenting the programs itself. So one of the universities that we're working with, they had only BTech in computer science, but what they did was took full specializations from Coursera on AI, because they didn't have the faculty members and the content to teach AI. And what they did was, if a student did only the BTech computer science, that's fine because that was a regular course. But if the students also did a full specialization on Coursera on AI, they got BTech in computer science with honors in AI. So that was a different program they started with the same infrastructure. So I think it also gives a lot of flexibility to the universities to augment what they have been teaching, but also giving more opportunities for students to learn what is needed.
Great. Thank you very much, Clive. To that point, I was wondering if I could ask the panelists, do we have to look now differently at how courses are presented to students if they are approaching them with a very specific aim, such as I want to do this type of job, or I want to work for a company such as this, which might be a big international company, and they are doing that partly because they are thinking of perhaps having an international career, or at least having a career that is very durable and that will suffer minimal disruption, because again, as Octavia mentioned at the top of the hour, there is so much disruption in the world of work and the careers market that it is very, very difficult for people starting out now to see the best path for them to take. Conrado, can you perhaps tell us how the conversations are changing that you are having with students about skills and careers and employability, and whether this is now a local issue or an international one?
Yeah, in our school, we have a program advisory board, and this is actually comprised of industry practitioners. Some of them are alumni, and from time to time, they give us feedback on the competencies needed in industry. And we try to integrate that in the curriculum of our students. Now, with digital education, I think we try to augment learning and knowing these competencies coming from the program advisory board through some softwares that are available that the students can actually use even without going to the school. And somehow this actually gave some interest in the students as well. Just like Bhavi said, some students find it very interesting to learn on their own. But again, still, it's a Philippine culture that most of our students really rely on being spoon-fed with all the things that they have to learn. So we have to shift from that mindset of being spoon-feeding our students into making them learn more about what's out there, what is actually required by industry. So I guess the presentation earlier on about the competencies and the skills needed by industry is an eye-opener for some schools. But in our case, we are in touch with industry. So we are preparing our students really to practice locally. But now, since internationalization is here and because of the virtual education and all, we are already exploring and opening doors for our Filipino graduates to be part of the global workforce as well. And hopefully with softwares like the learning systems or the MOOCs like Coursera and all will help our students achieve that goal. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Cheryl, what does this dialogue look like at your institutions in terms of how you are speaking to staff and students differently about careers and employability now?
Yep. Part of our training for our academic staff is raising awareness about the uncertainties of a VUCA world and the changing trends in the future of skills as well as the future of work. We realized that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the expectations of industries. most of them already expecting our graduates to be able to work in a hybrid environment, some working from home as well. Also, the integration of data analytics, enabling graduates to at least be able to interpret analysis of data for informed decision making in the workplace, and several other skill sets, which in the original curriculum that we drafted, aligned with the K-12 program, implementation of K-12 in the country, have not really been, should I say, have not really been that enhanced yet in terms of deliberate integration into instruction. But this time, we really have to recognize that the expectations of the workplace have changed. And we also have to recognize the need for us to bridge whatever skills gaps may have been brought about with the closure of schools over the last 2 years. So with that, academic staff are guided in terms of how they will identify these gaps. So assessments, diagnostics are very important. And our administrative and academic officials are directed towards strengthening partnerships with industry and alumni in order to clarify these skills expectations. It's not easy because I think the students also might feel overwhelmed with new things that they have to learn. When they also are still trying to cope with the new ways in which they are being taught. So I guess in that sense, the challenge mainly is how the staff staff expectations from students and the students' expectations from teachers can be made to reconcile so that they come up with effective development of knowledge and skills needed for their future work or future professions. So with that, I think there is, it really helps talking to peers in the practice outside of the university to really look at how are they experiencing this, what are they doing about it, both local and international, because I think the context is rather different, but learning from the experiences of everyone will really help us also shape our own strategies as an institution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. I think it's an interesting point that you're not just dealing with the new expectations of students, you're also dealing with the setbacks that you don't anticipate because of the shortfalls that have been created by not being able to have as much in-person interaction over the past 20 months or so. Amy, have you noticed any trends where your students have more international ambitions now, either to study abroad or to work abroad, despite the restrictions?
We don't have data yet on that, but then I'm expecting that perhaps once it's all open, they would want to participate in physical engagements. But then since virtual is very easy to access, then I don't think that will also be left behind. Also, the chance to be actually exposed to the experts in different fields, I think that's a premium to the education that they will be getting. So that's also going to add to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Narcissa, can I ask you how you think universities will change their appeal as a destination? Because we've heard a lot about the benefits of studying online, and also there have been some discussions of what people miss about in-person study and what you can measure in person better, perhaps slightly. As we look at what modern students want, both domestic and international, do you think universities will have to present themselves a slightly different way to seem more attractive to certain types of student?
Yeah, I think I would say there are lots of possibilities and opportunities here for the universities to really level up and offer a more integral education. And as I mentioned, the ecosystem and the whole context of education. Students, of course, they're still coming to schools and universities to learn and to enrich their skills and of course to earn degrees. But beyond that, because these things can easily be done now digitally or online, but beyond that, they're looking for more. And I think nothing can replace face-to-face or interpersonal interaction, and the what we call the formative aspect of education, the totality of the person. I think even these days, there is also a significant increase in terms of mental stress, and the mental well-being of our students. Concerns along those areas are rising. And in fact, even in our programs, we're trying to address mental health issues. And these are, I think, byproducts of studying in isolation, just staying in their home and pursuing education. And I think our young people are understanding that they need to learn more apart from what they can get from books or from their professors. The life learning that we're talking about will have to be also will have to be inclusive of many other things. That's why there's something that cannot be replaced by face-to-face. The fact that they would come to the campus and be able to interact with their students, and all other things can happen along the way. And this is something I think that people will be looking for. In fact, when the pandemic came to Cebu, immediately there was a concern how we can replace what would be the program that we can come up with to address mental health issues. We came up with webinars, with kind of peer counseling and other things. And I think these are just indicative of the fact that they need more from the universities. They expect universities to address these needs for them. And this is, for me, an opportunity, kind of an eye-opener also for us to understand that students really are asking for more from us, not just intellectual capabilities or development.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Conrado, we're very tight for time, I'm afraid, but if you have some closing remarks, it'd be great to hear them briefly.
No, really. I just want to be candid about this. So if government policy will improve on the internet connection in the country, then Philippine schools will get a sizable amount of foreign students. Because I would say that tuition fee in the Philippine universities are much cheaper than those in other countries. So if government will step in and improve on the policy on internet connection in the country, then I think it would really boost the internationalization activities of all the universities in the country. Thank you.
Okay, great. And Amy, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Right. Nowadays, we always have all these surveys for our students, and I think that it's really high time that universities listen to what the students want. So if they say that employability is really the first thing that they're looking for, then it has to be something that you have to address. So I think that's my closing remark.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That is all we have time for, I'm afraid. We've run slightly over, so thank you for staying with us. And thank you all for joining us today. It's been really interesting hearing all the different perspectives from around the country. This is also just a reminder that there will be an on-demand version of this recording of the roundtable and a summary article of its key findings, and they will be both published on the Times Higher Education website post-report, should you wish to revisit this content or share it with anyone who may find it useful. We hope that you've enjoyed the discussion. We'd also like to thank Eclavian and Coursera for partnering with us to enable the event, and we will be in touch with the post-event comms. In the meantime, I hope you will stay safe, and I hope you'll manage to have a good break over the festive period, and we hope to be able to engage with you at future THE events. So thank you again for joining us today, and goodbye.